So today we're going to talk about bulking, cutting, or body recomposition. And these are three terms you may or may not have heard of. You may have heard of them in different ways. It might be building, losing, or changing is another way of describing them. And it's important to realize with all of these that patience is key and you must trust the process. So we're going to delve into this now and you're going to gain a much better understanding of these three terms and how everybody right now is in one of those phases, even if you don't know it. So first of all, as in usual leaner lifestyle style, let's have a look at some of the problems around this. Counteracting goals. More often people don't align their exercise, nutrition and lifestyle to get towards the outcome that they desire quicker. So you might feel better, you might be fitter, but in terms of body shape, you won't change as much as you like because your goals are counteracting. Therefore, you're probably wasting time, energy and effort. A lot of people have a lack of understanding how fat loss and muscle building works. People think that fat loss just means that your tummy's going to get smaller, and people think that bulking or muscle building just means that the arms are going to get bigger. A lot of the time, people don't have the patience that's required to either lose enough fat loss to see a difference or to build enough muscle to see a difference as well. And then not working on these specific goals consistently for long enough, then you're not going to see a real difference. None of the phases that we're going to go into should last less than 3 months to see a difference. So you need to have patience. A lot of people don't see the bigger picture long term. They often think in short term. Actually, fat loss, you're looking at 1 to 2 pounds per week, maximum. Actual muscle gain, when you're in a muscle building, so a bulking phase, you're gaining only between 2 to 4 pounds per month. So if you're only giving yourself a month at a time, you're not going to really see any big changes. So you need to look at the bigger picture. And quite often people are afraid of what those terms mean. Bulk, cut, sounds quite aggressive. Bulking sounds like massive weight gains. Cutting sounds like an aggressive bodybuilder thing. But actually you're all doing it right now. So we need to understand the problems. Everyone right now has a current level of muscle mass. Fat is either covering that so that you can't see the muscle you have, or if you've got low levels of body fat, your muscle mass is so small that it doesn't show that you have a shaped physique. So those are two problems. Either too much body fat covering your current muscle mass, or not enough muscle mass to give you a shaped and muscular physique. And it's important also to understand that when people say that they want to be more toned or more defined, that is either one of those two things that we've just touched on. They either want to lose body fat or they want to build muscle. It is a much better idea to chip away at the covering layer of fat to see what foundations you have underneath. That way, you can then build upon them. So first of all, you want to uncover the muscle that is already there before you decide whether you need to build more. So it's dropping your body fat first. You need to understand that the more muscle you have, the greater that you can eat, the more you can eat. So your maintenance calories will go up. For you to just have muscle requires more calories, more energy than what it does for other tissues, so fat tissue. Okay, so the more muscle that you have, it means that the greater your maintenance calories can be. So that's important to understand when you're thinking that you might not want to go through a bulking phase. Actually, in the long run, it's going to be good in terms of the fact that you can enjoy and be even more flexible with your nutrition. So sometimes 3 to 6 months of really hard work cutting, so maybe being a bit more restrictive than you have been, is well worth it. Because then when you've chipped away at that and reveal what you have left, then you can build up your body shape and physique. And as you do that, you're building up your calories and you're building up a higher maintenance level, which is a massive, massive bonus. So we're going to have a look into bulking, cutting and body recomposition in a bit more depth now. So what is a bulk? Bulking just means that you're going to be wanting to increase your muscle mass. It means that you need to eat in a calorie surplus, just a slight calorie surplus. So this just means you need to be more than maintenance. Maintenance level is that your calories in, so everything that you consume, is level to the calories you expend, everything that you burn. So for bulking, you need to be slightly higher on your intake than what you're burning. You have to do this in order to create muscle mass. That doesn't mean just eating crap. A lot of people just think that, again, consume loads and loads of crap calories. We're going to delve into why that isn't how you should do things. And also, when you're wanting to build muscle, you need to fuel your body correct with the correct nutrients in order to get the greatest muscle building. It means during this bulk phase, you're drastically going to improve your strength. And you're probably going to have more of a focus on a performance goal. So checking your figures in terms of what you're lifting rather than how your body shape's looking. It means that you've got to progressively overload your muscles through volume. Volume, when you are training with resistance, is the amount of reps you do times the sets you do times the weight that you use. Those three factors equal your overall training volume. And week on week, you need to progressively overload the volume by adjusting one of those factors or multiple factors. And when you're bulking and you increase your muscle mass, you are naturally going to gain some body fat. But this is only slight if you do it properly. So what you want to be looking at in terms of your bulking phase is, let's look at body weight, muscle, and fat. During a bulk phase, you want all three of those to go up. Your body weight's going to go up because your muscle mass is increasing, but you want your muscle mass to increase at a rate that's better than your body fat increase. So that graph shows that pretty clearly. Those are your goals during a bulk. So you can track that through going on the scales and tracking your body fat as well. How long should you bulk for? Okay, so this depends on your starting point, where you're at. But mainly it's going to be somewhere between 3 to 6 months. The lower that your body fat is to start, this means that you can stay in a bulk phase for longer. Because if you're down towards the 10% region of body fat, you can bulk and gradually gain body fat up to around about 15, 16%, which we're going to get into soon, without really affecting your health. So the lower that you start off, the longer you can go in. If you start off at a higher body fat, you're going to start to get into those higher body fat regions as you increase your muscle mass, which is going to affect your overall health. So you're going to have to cut it short and then go back into a cut. So you need to stop bulking if you approach men around about the 20% body fat level, and women if you're approaching the 28% body fat level. Now let's look at a cut. So cutting just means that you want to lose body fat to reveal that muscle tone and definition which we've talked about, that muscle that you already have there. Dropping your body fat is going to reveal the muscle that you have left. So this means that you need to be eating in a calorie deficit, so less than your maintenance level. So your calories in versus calories out, your maintenance, you need to be eating at slightly less. That doesn't mean starve yourself. It's just a slight calorie deficit. That means that you can do this for a longer period of time. It means that you need to maintain your strength. So a lot of people often, when they think about cutting, is just doing vast amounts of cardio, forgetting about the strength, or really just dropping down the weights massively. And what this does is, whilst you cut, yes, you lose body fat, but you also lose muscle mass. So like we said, physique wise, when you cut, you want to have your muscle mass there. You want to have that tone, because if you get down to low body fat levels and you haven't got any muscle there, or very little, you're still not going to be happy with your body shape. So you need to maintain your strength. Depending on your level of experience, you might even improve your level of strength during a cut. And it means focusing on body shape goals. Progress photos, you're going to be able to see the changes in your muscle definition as your body fat comes down, and also in your circumference measurements. During a cut, it means that you're either maintaining or progressing your overload and your muscles through your volume. So like we touched on, your volume is your reps, sets, and weight used when you're doing your resistance training. Depending on your level of experience, if you're a very, very beginner, you'll still be able to make increases and you'll be able to progressively overload to a certain period of time. But if you are quite intermediate or even advanced, then your main goal is maintaining your strength. So maintaining the level of volume. And this just means that you're decreasing your overall body fat gradually and consistently. So let's have a look at your goals during a cut. We're looking at weight, muscle, and body fat levels. So for a novice, like we just touched on there, your overall body weight wants to come down on the scales because your body fat is coming down. But if you're very new to training, weight training, and training properly, you might make slight increases in your muscle mass. So that graph there shows that. However, if you are more of an intermediate and expert, experienced trainer, your body weight's still going to come down, your body fat's going to come down, but your muscle's going to maintain. Both of those are really, really important. And training properly is key for this in order to not lose the muscle mass. So how long to cut for? Again, this depends on your starting point. Somewhere between 3 to 9 months of cutting, depending on how high your initial body fat level is. But throughout that, you should always have breaks at maintenance calorie level. So if I was to say that you would be in a calorie deficit for 9 months, that is some hard going. And so I would recommend that every 6 weeks to 2 months, you get back to maintenance level for a week or two. But more than likely, this will naturally occur with your real life, majority of the time. Whether that is you have a week where you're not feeling great and you just go off the boil a little bit, or you have a holiday in there, or you have a couple of celebrations in there, you'll probably naturally just go back up to maintenance level. All right. And you might even think that that's a bad week, but actually it's just maintenance. So these will naturally occur most of the time. You should cut until you reach somewhere between 10 to 16% body fat for men. Any lower than 10%, and then you're going down to health problems regarding very low body fat levels. And this is what only a small percentage of people who want to do bodybuilding shows will go for. Women, you should cut until you reach somewhere between 18 to 25% body fat. Again, when you're going down to those lower body fat levels, this can massively affect your health and things like pregnancy and other female hormones. So now let's look at body recomposition. And this one's often quite confusing with people. So hopefully this is going to explain a lot. Body recomposition means that you simultaneously drop body fat and build muscle. It never means one changes to another. So often some people think that they have lost fat and built muscle, but they'll say the fat's turned into muscle, or people's muscles turned into fat. That never happens. One tissue doesn't automatically change into the other. To go through a body recomposition phase, you need to just be eating at your maintenance level of calories. So your energy in versus your energy out, that is where you're meeting your calorie goal at. It means that there's more emphasis on changing your macronutrient intake. A lot of people, when they have low levels of muscle mass and high levels of body fat, they usually have a very, very low protein intake. Low protein intake and never have done any sort of structured and correct training around exercise, weight training. Okay, so just flipping the protein level and looking at that macronutrient intake can have a big change. So that needs an emphasis. During a body recomposition phase, it means that you build your strength up to a certain point and then maintain it. So it still means that you're focused on your performance, your training volume, overloading that, but you're also keeping a track on your body shape goals. Are your circumference measurements changing? Are your photos changing? So like I touched on there, it still means progressively overloading your muscles through volume, reps, sets, and weights. Week on week, having to play around with those figures, make sure they're going up. And it'll mean that there are decreases in body fat, which is gradually and consistently, and it will also mean increases in muscle mass. So let's look at that in a graph. Your weight will stay the same. Your muscle mass will increase, your body fat will decrease. This is where you see real shape changes without the scales changing. And this is often something that really, really demotivates people, but they are making huge changes. So don't underestimate if you are in the body recomposition phase. So how long should you be in that body recomposition phase? It depends on your starting point, what your starting body fat level is, but somewhere between 3 to 6 months is what we would recommend. The thing is, with this phase, it's harder to track your progress as to whether to stay in this phase. But one key factor are your strength gains and your strength progress. If you come to a point where you aren't continuously progressing the volume or your strength, it's then time to choose a different phase, whether to bulk or whether to cut. And that option comes from what level of body fat you're at. So if you stop noticing that your shape's changing in your photos, and you stop noticing that you can't lift any heavier or progress your volume anymore, it's definitely time to make a change. So how do you know which ones to choose? These are some really good guidelines as to where you should be and what you should choose in terms of your nutrition, exercise, and lifestyle based around a bulk, cut, or a recomp. So when to bulk, if you were already lean enough and you can see your abs and you can see other muscle separation, general rule of thumb, that would be men under 16% body fat, women under 25% body fat. That is when you should look to bulk if you are unhappy with your body shape still, which means that you're unhappy with your muscle that's left. So you need to build and go into the bulk. Why? Because if you start going over 16% body fat and you're getting up towards the 18% body fat, you're increasing your health risks. So you shouldn't really bulk until you get down to those lower levels. Same with females. If you're getting over the 25% region, up towards the 28% region, you're increasing your health risk levels. So it's important that you drop down to those lower body fat levels before you start to build muscle. Because remember, yes, you will increase your body fat as you bulk. Also, when you get to these higher levels of body fat over the thresholds that are being given there, you start to create new fat cells, which are easier to fill up in the future, which you don't want. So when to cut, if you can't see your abs or any other muscle separation, then the general rule of thumb is that would be men over 16% body fat, women over 25% body fat. Then you should cut. And it's the same as above. You don't want to be over those percentages because it's increasing your health risks. And then on the other end, you don't want to be below 10% for men for health reasons at the lower end of low fat levels, and the same for under 18% for women. You just want to be able to find that balance, find a good space that you can enjoy life and still feel and look good. And then when to do a body recomposition. So this one's a bit of a gray area. If you're a complete beginner to weight training and you can progressively overload your training volume consistently at maintenance calories, then you want to be able to stick at that body recomposition phase. And a general rule of thumb here is if you are a male in between 13 to 18% body fat, and more importantly, you aren't overweight or underweight on the scales, or you're a female somewhere between 22 to 28% body fat, again, aren't underweight or overweight on the scales. Why? If you are overweight or underweight, then you need to look at either of the other phases, the cutting phase or the bulking phase. Underweight, you need to bulk. Overweight, you need to cut first. That's important to understand. But then if you are happy with your weight, but you're not happy with your muscle tone and shape, then you definitely should be doing a body recomposition phase. Things to consider. There's something called the lean versus skinny fat comparison. And what you need to understand is that these two people are looking very, very similar when they're wearing clothes, but they have totally different muscle to fat ratios. So this image shows the person on the left is a lean person with a high muscle percentage, and the person on the right, the skinny fat person, has a very similar body shape, but has much lower muscle mass and much higher body fat percentage. This is often a dangerous place to be in, because when most doctors and medical professionals track your health, they'll track your weight, or they'll do it on scales, or they'll do a BMI figure. So if you were just getting your weight, both of those people might weigh very, very similar. But actually, internally, the person on the right has very high levels of fat, massively increasing their risks of health implications. So that is why it's a very dangerous place to be in. This type of person, if you are a skinny fat person, you definitely want to be in the body recomposition phase. This is your best option. And the good thing is you could make huge changes at maintenance calories to the ratio between muscle and body fat. So you're going to see huge shape changes. What to do after each phase? You've got to have a plan after each phase. It's a good idea to have at least a week or 2 weeks at maintenance calories at the end of a phase. And your maintenance is your happy level. So if you're happy with your body shape, then you can stick around that. But what you need to understand is this is where people really go wrong. And they'll go in a vicious circle of getting to a point that they're happy, sacking everything off, doing nothing, and then going back to the old ways. So your maintenance phase still has to have a plan. It still has to have a calorie goal, a protein goal, a workout plan, a step goal to maintain that level. If you sack everything off, you're not going to maintain that level. Okay, so maintenance phases are still just as important as the bulk, cut, and the recomp phases that we've just spoke about. You've got to look at potential obstacles and barriers to overcome. So if you're thinking about doing a cut phase for 3 months, have a look ahead. Have you got any holidays? How are you going to get around this? It's about being aware and creating plans to overcome it. On the flip side of that, if you're going to do a 3-month bulking phase, how are you going to be able to plan your food if you're busy at work that you can consume enough calories and enough good quality calories? You need to have a plan and you need to have an action plan, being aware of these things. Any of the phases that we've spoke about, bulking, cutting, recomp phase, they all require being flexible and being sustainable. Otherwise, you're just going to fail. And they all require patience and consistency. Like I touched on at the start, often people don't get to where they want to be because they don't give it enough time and patience and consistency to get there. Like I said, none of those phases that we've touched on were any less than 3 months. And remember, any of those phases all require, and even a maintenance phase, like I've just said there, they require a calorie goal, a protein goal, a weekly workout plan, and a daily step goal, regardless of where you're at. So you still need to have some direction and an action plan. So just to wrap that up and conclude, get clear on your goals, get clear on your time frames, stop counteracting your progress. Okay? You still need to follow the flexible principles that Leaner Lifestyle is all about. But if you were to be stricter in your cutting phase for, say, 3 to 6 months with really hard work, this could allow you to be more flexible long term. And what I mean by that is, touched on it at the start, as you gradually build up your calories, as you build your muscle that you've now revealed because you've cut down to see what's underneath, when you now have taken your maintenance calories from maybe 1,600 to 2,000, you've got an extra 400 calories without gaining fat, which is brilliant. Only at certain lower levels of body fat can you see your muscle tone and definition, and then you need to see whether it needs building or maintaining. In order to be able to eat more calories without gaining excess fat, you need to have more muscle mass. And this is where the joy comes in about being able to eat more when you're stronger and have that more muscle mass. Bulking, cutting, and recomp are all phases which should change over time. This depends on your level of experience and where you're at with your current body shape. And then you should always have a clear plan drawn up for your maintenance. Like I said earlier, that is where people often go wrong and they go in a vicious circle of getting to where they want to be and then falling back. Maintenance for longevity, you must have a plan for that going forwards. So it would be awesome to hear what stood out for you most there. If it struck a light bulb and you need to make any big changes, or you want to speak to a coach with any questions about your current plan, please get in touch. It would be awesome to hear some feedback.